Have you ever wondered about the origins of popular English idioms? Idioms, those quirky phrases we use in everyday conversation, actually hold a treasure trove of cultural history and linguistic nuance. They're a key aspect of language that gives it color and depth. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is an idiom? Well, at its core, an idiom is a phrase or expression that carries a figurative meaning. That's right, its actual definition is often quite different from the literal interpretation of the words it contains. For example, when someone says, "It's raining cats and dogs," they're not actually suggesting that household pets are falling from the sky. The beauty of idioms is that they can encapsulate complex ideas or emotions in a simple, memorable way. They're a testament to the creativity of language, reflecting the humor, wisdom, and shared experiences of different cultures. In this video, we're going to embark on an exciting journey through the world of English idioms. We'll explore phrases that range from food-related idioms like "bring home the bacon" and "as useful as a chocolate teapot," to weather idioms such as "rain or shine" and "when it rains it pours." We'll delve into animal idioms including "put the cat among the pigeons" and "herding cats," and we'll also touch on idioms about news and information like "bad news travel fast" and "front page news." We'll also dive into cultural idioms, phrases that have been shaped by societal norms and historic events. Ever heard of a Mexican standoff or wondered why Rome wasn't built in a day? We'll unravel these and more. Lastly, we'll round off with a mix of miscellaneous idioms, from "lose one's marbles" to "walking on eggshells" and "throw caution to the wind." So, are you ready to uncover the hidden meanings behind these intriguing phrases and maybe even add a few to your vocabulary? Stay tuned as we delve into the world of English idioms. Ever heard of phrases like "bring home the bacon" or "use your noodle"? These are what we call food idioms. They're a tasty part of the English language that adds flavor to our conversations. Let's dig in, shall we? First up, "bring home the bacon." Despite its culinary imagery, this idiom has nothing to do with cooking. It actually means to earn money, particularly for one's family. For instance, you might say, "John works long hours to bring home the bacon." Next, "use your noodle." In this context, the word noodle is a playful term for the brain. So if you're told to use your noodle, it simply means to think smartly or logically. You might hear it in a sentence like, "I'm sure you can figure out this puzzle if you just use your noodle." Now let's talk about the big cheese. This idiom refers to an important person or a leader. For example, the CEO is the big cheese in any company. Ever heard someone being called a couch potato? It's an idiom used to describe a person who spends a lot of time watching television or doing nothing. Like, "My brother is such a couch potato, he's always in front of the TV." Next up, tough cookie. It refers to a person who is strong-willed and independent. In a sentence, "she faced many challenges, but she's a tough cookie." Let's look at eat like a horse and eat like a bird. If someone eats like a horse, they eat a lot. But if they eat like a bird, they eat very little. Moving on, "the apple of one's eye" is a phrase used to describe someone that is cherished above all others. Like, "her grandson is the apple of her eye." Apples and oranges is used to describe two things that are fundamentally different. For instance, comparing painting and photography is like comparing apples and oranges. Lastly, sweet tooth. If you have a sweet tooth, it means you love sweet foods. Like, "she has a sweet tooth, so she always has dessert." Food idioms are quite popular in English, aren't they? Weather affects our daily lives, but did you know it also influences our language? Just as the weather is ever-changing and full of surprises, so is our use of idioms in English. Let's dive into some weather-related idioms and see how they make our language more colorful and expressive. First up, we have "rain or shine." This idiom is used to express the idea of something happening no matter what the circumstances are. For instance, you might say, "the mail gets delivered, rain or shine," meaning that the mail will be delivered regardless of the weather. Next up is "right as rain." Despite what the phrase might suggest, it has nothing to do with accurate weather forecasting. Instead, it's used to describe someone or something that is in perfect condition or exactly right. If someone says, "after a good night's sleep, I felt right as rain," they mean they felt completely restored or healthy. Moving along, we have "to rain on someone's parade." This idiom doesn't involve actual rain or parades. Instead, it's used when someone spoils another person's plans or dampens their enthusiasm. For example, If someone is excited about their new business idea and you point out all the potential problems, you might be accused of raining on their parade. When it rains, it pours is another weather idiom. It suggests that when one thing goes wrong, many other things often go wrong at the same time. It's comparable to saying misfortunes always come in bundles. Lastly, we have save for a rainy day. This idiom is about being prepared. It means to save something, especially money, for a time when it might be needed unexpectedly. For example, she doesn't spend all her earnings and saves some for a rainy day. Weather idioms often reflect the unpredictability and impact of weather on our lives. They add a touch of charm and whimsy to our everyday language, making the mundane a little bit more interesting. Animals have a prominent place in English idioms. Ever heard the cat among the pigeons? This idiom is used when someone creates a stir or causes an uproar by doing or saying something unexpected or controversial. For instance, imagine a situation in which a quiet employee suddenly quits their job and starts their own company. That would surely put the cat among the pigeons in the office. Next, let's consider the phrase "like herding cats." This idiom paints a vivid picture of the challenging task of trying to control or organize a group of people who each have their own ideas and do not want to follow instructions. Imagine trying to gather all your friends who are spread across the city for a surprise party. It would feel like herding cats. Bell the cat is an idiom originating from Aesop's fables. It is used to suggest an impossible or dangerous task. For example, if someone proposes a risky plan without volunteering to execute it, you might ask them, "Who will bell the cat?" Moving on to aquatic life, a big fish refers to an important or influential person. In a company, the CEO is undoubtedly a big fish. On the other hand, if you have bigger fish to fry, it means you have more important things to do. For instance, if you're busy preparing for a major presentation, you might say you have bigger fish to fry than to attend a casual lunch meeting. Birds of a feather flock together is a popular idiom used to express that people with similar interests, ideas, or characteristics will often choose to spend time together. The idiom "like a dog with two tails" is used to describe someone who is extremely happy or excited. Imagine how excited a dog would be if it had two tails to wag. Lastly, the term underdog refers to a person or group expected to lose in a contest or conflict. This idiom is often used in sports when a less favored team triumphs over a stronger opponent. Animals, with their unique behaviors and characteristics, add color to our language. Information is power, and it's reflected in idioms too. Let's dive into some idioms about news and information. First up, we have "bad news travels fast." This idiom suggests that people are quicker to share unfavorable news or gossip. It's like when you hear about a celebrity scandal before you even have time to sip your morning coffee. Next is "to be old news." This is used when something isn't considered newsworthy or surprising anymore. For instance, if someone tells you that they've just discovered this amazing show called Friends, you might say, "That's old news. The show ended over 20 years ago." Then there's "front page news," which refers to something significant or sensational enough to make the headlines. If you did something extraordinary, like inventing a device to communicate with animals, you'd be front page news. Now, the bearer of bad news is someone who delivers unpleasant information. It's like when your boss walks in and says, "I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we have to work this weekend." Not exactly the kind of news you want to hear, right? Lastly, we have "straight from the horse's mouth." This idiom means getting information directly from the most reliable source. If you hear about a company's new product directly from its CEO, that's getting it straight from the horse's mouth. It's often the most accurate, unaltered news you can get. These idioms show how we perceive and share information. They reflect our tendency to spread bad news quickly, how quickly today's news becomes yesterday's, the impact of significant events, the discomfort of delivering bad news, and the value of getting information from a reliable source. And just like that, you're now in the know about these information-related idioms. Be sure to use them the next time you're discussing news or sharing information. Did you know some idioms have roots in different cultures? Let's dive into some idioms that originate from various cultures and explore their meanings and usage. First on our list is "a Mexican standoff." This idiom describes a situation where no one can proceed or retreat without exposing themselves to danger. Imagine three cowboys in a duel, each waiting for the other to make the first move. An example might be, the negotiation ended in a Mexican standoff, with neither party willing to back down. Next, we have talk for England. This British idiom is used to describe someone who talks a lot. If your friend can't stop chattering about their recent vacation, you might say, "She could talk for England about her trip to Paris." Then there's the classic "Rome wasn't built in a day." This idiom reminds us that important work takes time. If your coworker is getting impatient with a project, you could reassure them by saying, "Don't worry, Rome wasn't built in a day." Our next idiom, "The world is your oyster," encourages an optimistic outlook. It suggests that you have the freedom and ability to do whatever you want. If your friend is feeling down about a missed opportunity, you could cheer them up by saying, "Don't worry, the world is your oyster, there will be other chances." Finally, we have to paint the town red. This lively idiom means to go out and enjoy oneself flamboyantly. If you're planning a fun night out with friends, you might say, "We're going to paint the town red tonight." Cultural idioms like these not only add color and flavor to our conversations, but they also reflect the rich tapestry of cultures that contribute to the English language. So the next time you use one of these idioms, remember the cultural heritage it carries. Cultural idioms enrich our language and make it more diverse. There are many more idioms that don't fit into specific categories, but are equally fascinating. Let's start with the idiom, "hit the nail on the head." This phrase means to be exactly right about something. For instance, if you correctly guess the reason your friend is upset, you've hit the nail on the head. Moving on, we have "bite off more than one can chew." This idiom is used when someone has taken on more responsibilities than they can handle. Imagine a student who signed up for too many classes and now struggles to keep up. They've bitten off more than they can chew. Next up is "cry over spilled milk." This phrase is used to express the pointless frustration over something that has already happened and cannot be changed. If your friend is upset about losing a game last week, you might tell them, "There's no use crying over spilled milk." We also have "break the ice." This means to initiate conversation or ease tension in a social situation. You might tell a joke at the start of a meeting to break the ice and make everyone feel more comfortable. Another interesting idiom is "bury the hatchet." This means to end a quarrel or conflict and become friendly. Two nations might decide to bury the hatchet and sign a peace treaty. The idiom "to blow one's own trumpet" means to boast about one's own abilities or achievements. If someone is always talking about their accolades, they're blowing their own trumpet. To go against the grain means to act contrary to the norm or against one's own natural inclination. A vegetarian in a family of meat eaters is going against the grain. Lastly, we have "oddball," which refers to a person who behaves unusually or a thing that is out of the ordinary. And a go-getter is an active, ambitious person who strives hard to achieve their goals. Idioms are a testament to the richness and creativity of the English language. English idioms are a fun and interesting part of the language. We've navigated a fascinating journey through 100 English idioms, each one a colorful phrase that adds depth and delight to our conversations. They breathe life into our language, painting vivid images in the listener's mind. From food idioms like "bring home the bacon" or "the icing on the cake" that fill our language with delicious imagery, to weather idioms like "when it rains it pours" and "save for a rainy day," which bring a sense of the natural world into our dialogues. Each idiom is a delightful nugget of cultural wisdom, encapsulating centuries of collective experience in just a few words. We've explored the wild kingdom of animal idioms, where herding cats and belling the cat teach us about the challenges and strategies of life. Idioms about news and information, like "front page news" or "bad news travels fast," provide us with a unique perspective on how we communicate and perceive our world. We've also delved into cultural idioms. Phrases like "Rome wasn't built in a day" and "the world is your oyster" offer us a window into different cultures, illuminating their values and philosophies. In our miscellaneous section, we covered a range of idioms that can't be neatly categorized. These include "to go down the rabbit hole," "to blow one's own trumpet," and "to throw caution to the wind." These idioms, though diverse, all add a layer of richness and complexity to our language. In essence, idioms are a vibrant part of English that make our conversations more engaging and our expressions more colorful. They are delightful puzzles that invite us to think creatively and express ourselves with flair and imagination. So, let's not shy away from using these idioms in our daily conversations. They might seem odd at first, but once you start using them, you'll discover the joy they bring to your language. Remember, idioms add spice to our language, so don't be afraid to use them. Happy learning!